countries, emerging nations, and developed countries. How to become a developed country? Which countries in Asia have become developed countries? Only Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan before that, and South Korea. That takes a lot of effort and a lot of years to do so. Every year, the World Economic Forum releases a competitiveness ranking based on the pillars of these societies. Scandinavian countries rank very high. Singapore ranks very high. Why? Because they have different criteria to say, okay, you are very competitive. You attract companies, you attract investment, people want to live there, people want to work there, there's a high standard of living. Here you see some of the criteria. Take for example the country Japan. According to this ranking, Japan is ranked 6th in the world based on requirements like education, infrastructure, healthcare, income level. Those are the criteria you measure the development of a country by. So what does it take for a emerging country like Indonesia to become a rich country like Japan? It takes education properly, it takes a proper healthcare system, it takes a proper income level, a proper social security system. And that takes a lot. That can take years to get that one by one. So you can see that's why countries like Indonesia and Thailand, they have been emerging for 30 years. Because they have been impacted by a regional crisis, they've been impacted by a global crisis, and they start all over again. Now, most level of development in these nations is at the same level as it was in the late 90s. Because they were in fact affected by a crisis, and they never got any further than they were in 1997, more or less. So to become a Japan, or to become a Finland, or to become a Singapore, it takes a lot. So that's why I wanted to say about this ranking. Every year this is released, it's more or less the same. It's not like the next year you have all different countries in the top 10 all of a sudden. Usually it's always the Scandinavian countries. Singapore ranks very high, Hong Kong ranks very high, Japan is in the top 10. It's always the same. And it goes, one drops a little bit, one climbs up a little bit. But it's never a dramatic change, of course, because it takes such a long time to develop yourself. Any questions on this? Alt?
It sounds clear.
Sounds clear. Mark?
It sounds very clear.
Really great. Okay, I'm happy that was so clear. Nino?
What about the Netherlands?
The Netherlands is ranked number 8. So if you look at education, healthcare, tax system, social security, income level, that's quite decently organized. So they rank 8, lower than Singapore, but in the top 10. And as they've always been in the top 10 in the past years in this ranking, and they will always be, unless something dramatically happens. But once you're there and you keep your systems and your institutions in place, it's going to be okay. But to get there is difficult. To stay there is not so difficult, but to get there is a long path. Okay. So that's about, because everybody talks about emerging countries. You have to know, what does it mean, emerging nation? And what does it take to be an emerging nation? What does it take to become a developed country? That takes a lot. And this ranking gives you a sort of an indication of what path you have to go to develop yourself. And so the term emerging nation doesn't say that much. Where do you come from as a nation, and where are you going? And what does it take?
So we can see that the emerging market in the middle class of the Christian world.
Sort of, yeah. They always compare an emerging nation with an upcoming middle class. But both you have to define very properly, because both as doesn't say much. What is an upcoming middle class? A middle class in one country is not the same as a middle class in another. It depends on income level, but not only on that, it depends on free disposable income, purchasing power. Because you can have a high salary, but if your cost of living is very high too, you have no money to spend. So that's a different class than in another nation where the cost of living is very low, but the salary is okay. Then you have purchasing power, then you have a true middle class. And sometimes middle class gets confused with a large upper class. If you see countries like Indonesia or China, well, volume-wise, you have a lot of rich people. Percentage-wise, you have a lot of rich people. But is that the middle class or is it the large upper class? That you have to define. And it depends per country. It can change per country, it can vary. Because the same thing, upcoming middle class, what does it mean? It means something if it's connected to purchasing power. Otherwise, it doesn't say much. Any other question, Dimitri?
What are the obstacles that emerging countries have to face?
I mentioned already 2. They're always vulnerable for crises, whether it's regional or global crisis, like we had in 2008 or the Asian crisis in 1997. Boom, they got hit. So that you can never be like invulnerable to that. And second of all, to get all these institutions in place, like I said, proper healthcare system, that's a lot of work, proper education system, welfare division, people have a decent income, that's a lot of work, that's a lot of work. And it doesn't go like this, like I said, you have all kind of influences from outside that impacts your development. That's why it can take so long for nations to do so.
What is the best way to minimize risks?
To minimize risk is one, for example, what was very obvious in the latest crisis of 2008. Asian countries saw that they were too depending on the Western nations for export, for trade. And they got hit by the global crisis. So they shifted their attention, trade-wise and investment-wise, to other regions. The South line we talked about, Africa, South America, within Asia, to spread the risk and not be depending only on Europe or only on the United States. Because if something goes wrong there, they got hit. And that will not happen anymore because they spread the risks and they found new trading partners, new investment destinations. Yeah? Kevin,
Yes.
how are you?
Clear.
Yeah?
I'm good.
Okay. Sunny boy,
Yes.
for our Japanese viewers. Sunny boy. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, stop maar.
Okay.
Denk ik.
Nou, we kunnen go serieus zijn dus.
Ja.